Hi, and welcome to another edition of KNN. We're here with the hopefully latest and greatest in gaming news for the tabletop. I'm Denoctum, and this is
I'm Chaos. And yeah, it's kind of a slow week this week for like Games Workshop releases. We have a bunch of Black Library books coming out, but no new models, no new hobby supplies, nothing super exciting. It's almost like they're building up to something bigger.
That's because they're releasing contrast paint next week.
Yes.
Which is a major investment, and it's not just contrast paints.
Yeah.
I guess they're doing a whole bunch of stuff. What did they rebottle?
So some paint colors are going away. There's a few new colors coming in. The air paints are all being rebottled in these larger size bottles. I think they're like an 18 milliliter. I think they're like a halfway between the current bottles and like the double-sided shade bottles, I believe, from the pictures I've seen. Games Workshop hasn't actually given us any to like hold in our hands yet to see them, but those are being redone, which I think having the airline in bigger bottles is good because I burn through air colors pretty fast. I mean, they're a pretty thin color. You're going to go through them a little quicker than like a layer or a base. And then, of course, a lot of the Forge World colors are being released for the first time through the Games Workshop Citadel line. And so, as a hobby store, I'm really excited about that because it means we can have them in our local game store. We can offer that product to people for the first time because Forge World is also incredibly inaccessible to LGSs.
That's probably not going to change, but we can keep giving stink eyes. I don't think they're going to change that, but they're breaking some ground with it. I mean, yeah, because that's exciting from Forge World. I guess, so I've watched a lot of videos, and I know that we contrast on this particular subject. I've watched a ton of videos, and I haven't put the paints in my hands, so I would have loved the opportunity as an LGS or as a Twitch YouTuber, whatever you want to say, and I know we give them to all the big guys out there, so more power to that. But as I look at what's going on, I am just not, I'm not bowled over. I think like a lot of the crowd is, and I've seen some videos that have a negative take on the contrast paints, and I've seen some positive videos, but I haven't seen anything that, even in the positive stuff, that is like, wow, this is game changing. This is my theory. Games Workshop has to have major release on the 1st of June. We didn't have a new game this year. We had Age of Sigmar a couple years ago.
40K release,
and then
in June
every
too,
6 months. Yep, you got to have every 6 months. I think 6 months is kind of, and to me, this just kind of reeks of we needed something, so let's throw this into the wind. We'll release those Forge World paints, which were available at Forge World, and then we'll rebottle the air paints, and we'll come out with contrast paints, and hey, maybe it's a game changer. Again, I'll speak to what I've seen on the videos, and then we can do a follow-up segment, I think, after we get them in our hands, which might be helpful. But that's my concern with this particular release of these paints, because it's major. I mean, it's hitting local game stores for minimum like 4 Gs, I think.
Something. I mean, like the retail
on upgrades.
The retail side of things, if you go the full line and you already had their full line, it's something like $700-800 worth of new product.
Right. And 4Gs is just the bare minimum if you want to get in, and to me that hurts for something that, if it's going to be game changing, then I'll come on and I'll change my comments. I don't have a problem doing that. Chaos has told me today that I'm salty because I came in pretty salty. I watched a lot of videos. I watched a lot of the major ones, and they had some new painters on there. And for me, it's just like, maybe the formula in contrast paints is so different and so
what about it makes you salty? What do you think it's
I
doing?
don't. So if I guess I think the market, from what everybody's telling me, is, hey, this is going to make your new painters paint, or I'm going to be able to paint 1,000 orcs in 20 minutes. And that's an exaggeration, of course. It's going to make army painting faster. When you talk about horde armies especially.
Right.
And I just look at it and I'm like, don't we really kind of already have those tools? Maybe it's going to increase them and make them look slightly better. But honestly, if I'm painting a horde army in 20 minutes. I don't care if you're using, you know, the touch of miracle paint. It's still not going to look as good as a guy who sits down or a person who sits down and paints their army like you paint your armies.
I don't think it's meant to look as good as that. I think it's,
and that's fair.
I think it's,
but they already have that tool. So why are we blowing out the world with this whole new paint line that's going to change the universe?
I still think it does something different. It's not just a shade. I've painted models from the ground up, from like white primer coat, shade coat, shade coat, shade coat, shade coat, highlights, and there you go. But I mean, when you're talking a 30-minute dry time between shade coats, that's a lot of time you're sitting around doing a lot of nothing, or having to go do something else or work on other models or whatever. But
and I want to see that.
Yeah.
Because I've seen all these videos. Hey, I painted this in 40 minutes. I painted this in 50 minutes.
And I've seen the black. Like I've seen the new Templar black. I think it's what it's called, and they put it on like the guns of like an ultramarine or whatever.
Yeah, I saw that on one of the videos.
And like you see the one coat go over it and what it looks like when it's dry, and that like 4 shade coat stage I was talking about got the same effect. But it took me 4 coats to get the same effect that they do in 1 coat.
Because there's more pigment in the paint,
Right.
is our assumption at this point.
It's a thicker thing. It's not a shade. It's something different still.
Okay, so now I want to step back on what you just said. We're talking about, and again, if we're marketing to, hey, I'm creating a new technical paint, which is going to give me this ability to do X, Y, and Z, that's one thing. If we're creating a new paint line to try and new painters, I don't think that's what it does. But maybe I'm way off, because new painters are going to just come and barrage our shelves and buy all the contrast paint because suddenly they're going to want to paint. I don't know. I don't
in a way,
see that.
though, I think you're right. Though what they did there is, I think what they did is they did create a new technical paint. I think they created this new technical medium, and instead of just selling the technical medium, they said, well, what if we just pre-mix a bunch of colors with it? And that's how the contrast paints are born. And I could be wrong on that, but I'm just saying.
No, I don't have any issue with it. Just reeks to me of, we don't have a major product, so let's throw some paint out for June's release. I think that's probably where the most salt comes from me, if you want my salty opinion. Maybe it's the greatest paint ever, and again, in 2 weeks I'll let you know.
The numbers will tell us that. And
they will. Just paint's not, you know, I don't know. If you're trying to get people to paint, maybe this is the solution. Maybe, and this is where I'll come back and we'll say, hey, all of our painters and a lot of our painters don't paint. I think you saw that in General's Journey. When you heard, oh, this is going to get me to paint my armies. And again, I think you need something like that, not a new paint that is easier, because I just think there are easy techniques that are already available that you could do an army that's not awesome, but painted.
See, I think that's where you just lost people, though. Because you said there's techniques available. And a technique implies you have to learn something, you have to do something. Well, the problem is
it's painting. There are tools available, so let's skip technique, because if I contrast paint, it's a technique. I got to prime the model, and I got to slap on some contrast paint and still touch up. I believe it's still a 3-color minimum to be table legal or something like that. So yeah, you could just, it wouldn't take too much longer, but I don't think we've changed it enough to be like, wow, this is revolutionary. Now I'm going to paint every army I have, because it's, and I don't know. And again, we'll see. For guys who are serious painters, and again, like Chaos, it's probably a great new tool. I just don't think it needs a whole new line of let's change the world, and because it's just not, it's not a turning. When we get a box set, which is exciting almost every single time, it costs a lot of money, but that money is almost instantly recouped, and we see that. I guess we'll see if this paint changes the world and we recoup that. But I think that's one of my saltiness of the thing. And probably I'm a little salty because I don't get it early. How's that? I want it early. I want to see it.
I'm with you.
And
I want to try these out. I like the hype has been real for so long already online.
Yeah.
And like I went into this week thinking like, oh yeah, we're gonna get these this Saturday, and I was like, wait, no, it's still another week out.
And it's a bummer.
And that's the part that I guess I'm a little like. Yeah, I'm not happy about that. That it's so far away.
Because you know they
but
did
at the same
that
time,
with...
like give us a couple samples. Like give us 2 colors.
Yeah.
Like give us 2 colors ahead of time. Games Workshop already gives us sample models. They give us all these other tools to like demonstrate to customers.
Well, yeah, on some games they do that too, don't they? Where we got
if you pre-order like X number of games, they give you a copy a couple weeks ahead of time. Yeah.
Give it to me a couple weeks ahead of time.
I would have loved had they said like if you upgrade to the full paint rack, which our store did, that we're gonna send you 9 colors to try out, 2 colors to try out, something to get our hands on it and have the customers be able to look at it, be able to try it out, and see what the hype is honestly all about. Because I mean, we can watch videos all day long, and you're going to find people who have a predisposition against Games Workshop, and they're going into whatever they're going into looking to find something negative, and they're going to turns out whatever you look for, you find. So they're going to find the negative thing. Then you got the people who are like really excited going into it, and they're going to find the good things about it.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm sure there's a few people somewhere in the middle there that are just going in unbiased and will give a really accurate report of.
Well, and I have to say, and I'll go on. I am not. I love Games Workshop. I think most of the stuff they do, especially recently, I'll pre-quote my comments with recently in the last 2 years ish. I think what they do is solid. I think their stuff is great. I think their marketing has been phenomenal. Their product is, I think, the best in the business. There's no doubt about that. For me, so I'm not a GW hater by any means. I love their games. I love their models. I love their paint that they currently have. I felt like this at this point again reeks a little bit of we didn't have anything, so let me throw this to you. And I'll go from there. And I know you really like GW, so I would say I fall into that. I don't hate GW.
Right.
Maybe I'm a GW fanboy. I think on some level I am. But if I see something that's like, I'm just gonna call, whatever it is, and we'll see. Again, I haven't got it, so maybe next time we get it early, and then we can avoid this.
I am self-admittedly a GW fanboy. I love
Sure.
Games Workshop products, but when they pull some shenanigans, I'm also one of the first ones to call them out on it. And I don't think this was a shenanigan play on any means. I think that this is a legitimate product line coming out. My gripe is how they handled the release of it. Like I said, I'll call it out where I feel like it needs calling out. And I wish we'd had sample products up front. I wish we had a little more notice on it, and not just like, they gave us a week more notice than normal, so 2 weeks instead of 1 for like new product. And it's just like, and then something with that hefty of a price tag, I wish we had more notice it was coming. Now, having said that, they offered really good terms to retailers who were buying it. They did a lot of things to make it easier. They offered even a buyback program on the old paints and stuff too, that are like the old airline.
No, again, they're doing great company stuff.
Yes,
I think
on that
it's
side.
all fair.
I think this is going to be a solid product line. Now, whether or not new painters are going to end up being the target audience, we'll see. And I think that's the number one objection that you get for people painting their armies is it takes too long. And if they're marketing a paint that shows that you can paint models faster, then and there's other ways. We were talking about this earlier. Like Den is a rattle can guy, right? Like you're like a prime black rattle can zenithal over the top of that, and then throw a shade on it, and boom, you have a really complete looking model.
I do a little more than that.
I know, but I'm just saying to kind of get your primary color.
I
like
am
if you're
more
doing Space Marines or.
I will say this. I do probably take the more streamlined as much as possible route to getting a finished model, unless it's a tabletop centerpiece, like Nagash, for example. Nagash took me like 3 days to paint, but I followed. I watched the Duncan, who I love, by the way. I watched his thing and mix it 15 times, and I did that. I did that with the Lamia medium and the Nuln oil, and mix it and then put it on and then let it dry, and then do another layer and let it dry. So you get the nice transition. But I really only do that with my centerpiece model. So I'm not, and so Chaos and I differ in that way as well. So contrast paints may be geared right up my alley. I just feel like I can do a lot of what they're doing with. If you gave me some different colors of base rattle can primers, I could maybe do that with washes. Everybody's saying no, it'll sink too much into the crevices and leave too many spots. So we'll see. Honestly,
we'll see.
We'll have to see. But
and I'm an army painter too. Like I paint armies. I jump around projects a lot, but at the end of the day, I still paint hundreds of models a year. And if this speeds me up, I'm gonna be really happy about that. And if it, like I use an airbrush, I rattle can paint. I use an airbrush. I do whatever works for whatever I'm trying to do. And I was talking with one of our production guys earlier, and I was just like, like my process to paint a Space Marine right now, and the color scheme that I use is prime black, and then it's 3 different airbrush coats, and then it's a custom mix shade that I have to put over to get the color that I want. And I'm like, if this turns into prime black, zenithal with gray sear, the new primer color, and then 1 coat of a contrast paint, and I can get a close enough look, I just cut out having used my airbrush, period. Which, I love my airbrush, but it is more setup time, it's teardown time, cleaning time. There's extra steps involved in swapping colors. It's just, I see it as time saving. And I'm still, I mean, and from the look of the contrast paint so far, they apply as easily as a shade. So if I can apply a contrast in the same time it takes me to apply a shade, which is pretty fast, then you're saving me a lot of effort at that point. And once again, I get a certain look with my models, but I have to use an airbrush to do that on some of these models. If I can do that without using an airbrush, that makes that more accessible to your average Joe painter who doesn't want to invest in an airbrush, doesn't want to invest. I mean, an airbrush is an investment in time and money because you need to build a skill set to really use it effectively as well. It's not hard, it's just time.
I have one at the bequest of Chaos saying that I should get one. I got one for Christmas one year, and I haven't used. I mean, I did use it once. I painted the little skulls on the GW table. Those 2x2 squares.
Oh yeah,
with the skulls and the
board,
lava.
yeah.
With I painted those skulls, and they look good. But I haven't touched it since. It just scares me too much to put that together on my models.
There's an intimidation factor, I think, with the first time you use an airbrush.
Yeah.
But once you get through that, and like I've seen, I can't remember which YouTuber it was now. I think it was Pete the Wargamer, and he was running contrast paints through an airbrush because they're already so thin that it doesn't require any additional thinning, and he got a different effect out of it. So, like I said, the good painters too are going to be messing with things and trying different things out.
But that's what I mean, I got the guys coming in when they come to the store, and they were saying, and I think we've said this before. It's like, man, look how good this guy painted this miniature with these contrast paints, and I'm like, that guy is a Golden Demon winner. He didn't need contrast paints. He painted good before he got those. And it's just, so it boggles me when they say stuff like that. It's like, yeah, that's going to make me paint like him. And I don't tell him that because we want to sell paint. But, you're like, dude, seriously, it's like, I don't know about that. That guy's a good painter. And you could probably hand him mud and stuff and he'd turn it into some kind of cool paint. I don't know. But
like on the Blood Angel picture that we've talked about numerous times, the key thing on that, though, is he says this took 30 minutes. And I see that model, and that is not a 30-minute
That's a Blood Angel, right?
It's a Blood Angel.
Okay, wait for a second. How long does it take you to paint your Blood Angel 10-man unit, each one?
Each guy?
Right now without contrast paint.
Probably hour and a half.
Hour and a half for each guy? Okay.
Yeah.
That's fair. I wanted to contrast to see
and I saw the level that he did it in 30 minutes. That's a big difference.
Yeah.
And from and just an example without contrast paints right now. So I used to paint Space Marines the heavy metal way, right? Like base coat, shade coat, retouch up your base coat, first edge highlight, second edge highlight, spot color, and then do all your details and everything, right? And it would take me 2 to 2.5 hours to paint a Marine because I do lots of hazard stripes and detail work and all that stuff. And then I switched to using an airbrush. And I could do the zenithal highlights. I created my own shade coat. I put work into laying the foundation from it, and it took that 2.5-hour model down to an hour model. So once again, I want to see if I can get that same effect in the 30-minute model like he did with that Blood Angel. And if he does, if it cuts that time in half, that doesn't mean I have more time to go play video games. That means I have more time to paint my models. That for me, that's
get more models on the table.
So I can, if I cut an hour model down to half an hour, I'm painting twice as many models all of a sudden now.
Okay.
And I'm getting an army done. And that's what I want to see. But once again, we don't have these in our hands to play with these paints yet. We don't know what.
Yeah, the show would be better if we did.
Yes. Just saying. I mean, almost like there's a company out there that could make this happen.
They're probably not watching, though. But if they are, then you've heard our plea. Send us the paints earlier.
So Belgrud has a question. It says, basically he makes the statement, I have not started painting because I'm worried about mucking it up. And then he proceeds to ask, is it somehow going to make me or us as unskilled painters better? Is that a fair question to ask, or is anything going to require practice? You know what I mean?
Okay, I'm going to answer this one first, and then Denactum can add the salt.
It won't be salt.
I've talked to painters who are new painters, okay? New painters to the hobby, and they said they painted the first models and did not like the outcome of the models. And then they got a chance to try the contrast paints, and they said it made it look like they had been painting for at least a year already. Like the results were that much different. So based on that, yes, I would say new painters who don't have a lot of practice are going to be able to dive into the world of contrast paints and have a good tabletop look to it to begin with.
That's fair. I agree to an extent. Again, I haven't seen the contrast paints. So from what I've seen on videos, and I know that you're going to throw this under the bus because you have all afternoon. I can prime a model and wash it, and maybe I got to wash it a couple of times so that there's a length in there to do that. Maybe new painters aren't doing that, and they don't know that technique of I could wash and it would fill the gaps and it would look pretty good. And maybe contrast paints change that whole deal. So that being said, I agree with what you said. If the paint is truly going to do that and the contrast paints are going to make it so all you got to do is rattle can, prime it, and then slap on a color, and you got the shade and you've got the layer paint kind of all at once, and then all you're doing is touching up details if you're going to take the easy route. Because I think all you'd have to do is, on a Space Marine, touch the shoulder, touch the eagle, paint the gun and the gun tips, maybe paint in the eyes, and you've got a model that's tabletop ready. Mm-hmm. I think, yes, the contrast paints are going to make you if you're brand new, it's going to bring you to the next level of painting. However, if you're like me, you're going to want to learn to get better and do more with that.
That's what we're hearing over and over again. We're hearing that these contrast paints are not aimed at the veteran painters.
Right.
They are aimed at new painters. And I think that's where like a lot of like the negative comments I've seen mostly online are from veteran painters who are like, what are you doing, Games Workshop? This doesn't apply to me. And it's like, well, sorry, it's not about you. It's about the newbies. It's about the people who are new to the hobby and want to have a painted army but haven't put in the 10 plus years, 20 plus years of painting that some of us have put into already. And like it's gonna let them get a head start. I mean, if that tool was available when I started painting, I can't imagine what my models would look like today. But
and I actually don't think contrast painting is going to take you from, it's going to make you from a 0 to a year experience. It's not going to be the tool that takes you from a year experience and next week I'm going to paint a golden demon wiener.
Right.
Winner.
No, for sure.
Winner. And that's where I think I don't want people to get lost in the thing. And
but think about how much shades changed. Like
shades changed the game. I agree.
They did, and
that was a game changer in paint.
And I'm hearing from a couple Golden Demon winners that at least for the new painters, this is going to have a similar effect.
We'll see.
Yeah, that's.
So yes, I think it'll make it easier to answer that question to become.
Can we answer your question? Okay.
A quicker painter, a better painter, quicker.
And then Hurricane Katrina adds on to that and says, "What about the uninterested? Maybe that motivates more people to start painting."
No.
I disagree.
That's fine. You can.
I've having talked to people at the LGS who are not painters, they are waiting for the contrast paints to drop to start because it's a shortcut. It's an easy route.
We'll see.
Yeah,
I don't buy that because I talk to
15th.
painters all the time too. Gamers, I should say, they're not painters. And I'm going to do this and I'm going to paint. We'll see. I honestly believe that you're going to get a lot more traction on getting an army painted from a concept like War General's Journey,
sure,
than putting out a new paint line because
get a little bit of peer pressure. And
I think it's more about that than hey, this is really easy. Ultimately, I think there are easy ways, and again, you can call them techniques, whatever you want to call them. But I can go get on YouTube now. It's the age of Google and YouTube, and find a fast way to paint an army with the tools that we have. They're still not doing that.
I'm with you, but like I'm going to tell you right now, like you go to those videos and you go and you watch somebody's video, like, hey, we're going to paint this model today, and to paint this model, you're going to need these 87 colors.
No,
and
go find a different video. There are videos out there that will say you're going to prime and you're going to ink and then you're going to touch up 4 things and your model is done. Now, no, it's not a Chaos model. It's not a Golden Demon model. It's not a Tyler Mango model. It's not a Duncan model. It is a model that's tabletop ready, so your army's not gray. How many people are doing
that? We call that eBay Pro Painter.
Fine, but how many people have even done that? Not very many. You got gray, or you got people who paint. There's very few people in the middle in the world, in at least in our experience, and actually in my whole gaming experience. You saw gray armies, or you saw pretty dang good armies. There's not a lot of middle ground of people who just did 3 colors and I'm out.
I think this is going to be the middle ground. I think this is going to create that.
Maybe that'll bring that. For me, I just don't see that being the case. I think I think a lot more use is going to be made of the contrast paints by painters like Chaos, who will find a technique or a methodology where this paint will become like a technical paint, like a Nurgle's Rod or something like that,
Man, I
where
hope so.
they're going to put it on. I really think that's really where it's going to go. I know the goal is to get people to paint, but again, you got to get a brush in hand is a problem.
I'm just going to say this. Okay, so like you've seen how I paint my orcs.
Sure, I actually copied that. He taught me how to do that, and I copied it, and it's really fast.
So I have a technique to paint orcs fairly quickly. I think, though, that contrast paints might speed that up once again, because my technique is 5 colors to get the skin tone, right?
Maybe, yep.
You're dry brushing the whole model with Dawnstone, Administratum, White Scar, and then hitting it with, I can't think of the name of the color right now. I want to say
the yellow one,
Cassandora
yellow. Yep.
Yellow, and then Bealtan Green.
Yep. And they look good.
With suitable drying times in between. But that's 5 steps.
Sure.
And now they're saying you get orc flesh, you put it on there, you're done.
And we'll see if it looks.
We'll see how it looks. Now I'm thinking, what if it's one extra step? What if it's the orc flesh and then I put a yellow glaze over it for the highlights to blend it in? That's still 2 steps compared to 5.
Okay, here's I'm going to counter argument this, and we probably should move on. But there are methods that I can use though. Even now, if I care about, if you call it an eBay ready army or whatever you want to call it on the tabletop, I could base coat a miniature in a green. Does Games Workshop have a green rattle can? Caliban green. Probably not the right color for orc flesh, but
it's really dark.
I could find one, whatever.
Army Painter has a line.
Army Painter. If I was really motivated to go out and have a table ready army with a few colors on it, I could do that and wash it with Bealtan green. Is that what it is? Mm-hmm. Even camo shade would work for a little darker skin.
Shade, yep.
And get what I'm envisioning somewhat of a similar effect and be done in one coat. If that was really my motivation, that's why I just have a hard time seeing this as like players are going to now flock to get their armies painted.
Well, once again, I think the name is there. Like contrast in the contrast paints is because it does pull away from the raised areas more and puts a natural highlight there already. And what you're talking about doesn't do that as much.
But it would give me an army that is suitably painted on the table that I can be proud of, whereas on the flip side, I can just leave it gray, which is what I choose to do. Either way, I've got to put a rattle can thing and slap on paint.
June 15th is going to be the telling day, right?
We're going to see.
June 15th. If people are coming in and buying paint on June 15th and we're seeing armies start to get going, then we'll know that contrast paints are a success.
I think June 15th isn't the right day to calculate, though, because June 15th, all of your really great gamers who are totally dedicated are going to come buy all that paint because they're GW loyalists. And they'll buy all that. I think June 30th or September 1st, let's see what's going on with contrast paint. Maybe we need to revisit it then.
We'll see.
Sarge, for you, wonders, and this is just a question for later, but do you think the contrast paints will stay in your airbrush or easily wash off? And NRW65 says good painters will use everything.
Yep.
For new techniques. I mean, your whole arsenal, right?
Okay. Let me just address the first question first. They're still acrylic paints as far as we know. They haven't told anything otherwise, and they're already pre-thinned. The contrast paints. I don't think they'll have any adverse effects on an airbrush more than an acrylic paint does right now.
Yep.
All right. What was the second one? I can only do one at a time.
NRW65 agrees with Chaotic and says good painters will use everything in their arsenal paint.
Yeah,
that's right.
That's right.
Sarge, for you, there's a nice little comment here to troll you guys. Says if it's as good as the hand gestures, it's going to be great.
Nice. I'll save my hand gesture for Sarge for you then. We still want kids to watch. All right, so that's contrast paints, and it'll probably be an even cooler show when we get them in our hands and able to use them and kind of bring to you what they bring to the table for ourselves and the gamers that we see in the store.
I'm excited still. There's one color I really want to see out of that line, and it's the Pterodon turquoise, and I want to see if it matches my Marines or if there's a blue that does. Because if so, I'm going to start painting Marines.
And here's going to be another test of time. When we come back and we revisit this, July 15th, September 1st, if Chaos is still excited about contrast paints, this will all have been for naught.
I'll admit if I'm wrong, too.
It's not about being wrong. If he's not excited anymore, for me, it was probably just one of those. We didn't have an idea in June, so here's the contrast paints. All right, moving on to what's our next salty comment today?
Magic.
Magic the Gathering, Modern Horizons.
Drops Friday, right?
It does. It drops Friday. There's some excitement behind it. There's probably those who are more excited about certain aspect players of Magic.
Now Commanders
Wizards
did something different with this one, though, right? Like,
Okay,
there's been modern sets in the past. Yeah, I mean,
we'll go to this. Well, no, I don't think there has been. I think this is the first modern set. Your Ultimate Masters couldn't play them. They're not playable unless they were reprinted. Unless it was a reprint.
Iconic Masters is too. Modern Masters was. They were all modern legal.
Oh, we'd have to look. This is more geared towards modern.
They all are. That's why it's called Modern Masters, Iconic Masters. Those are all.
We'll have to see because I think some of the cards weren't allowed in modern.
This is the first time though that they do a pre-release event with it. We've never had a pre-release event sanctioned by Wizards until
is
this
it?
one.
Blue is Kellis says first ever direct to modern.
Yeah, direct to modern. I don't think the other ones couldn't go to modern, if I'm not mistaken.
I thought they were all reprints.
They can correct. No, I think the reprints that were already allowed in modern you could use, like when they reprinted Liliana of the Veil in Ultimate Masters. That was already a modern legal card, so you could use it in modern. This is the first set where I believe all of the cards that are in it, including the new cards, will be modern legal.
That's the other different thing. There's new cards.
And so they're doing new cards. And yes, Chaos mentions the pre-release sanctioned by Wizards. This will be where I get salty a little bit because it's like Ultimate Masters. There was a pre-release, whether it was sanctioned by Wizards or not, I don't know, but we did a pre-release. It was a draft. And that's all that they've done for Modern Horizons. They didn't provide prize support to LGSs for Modern Horizons pre-releases. They didn't do a pre-release pack for LGSs for pre-releases. They said, buy some boosters and run a sealed or a draft. And we now sanction this as a pre-release. Sorry, guys, not a pre-release. Yeah. I did those pre-releases with every single master set you've ever released. And this isn't a master set. Let's make sure we're saying that right. This is Modern Horizons. And so as much as they want, and this is when it irks me from a corporate level that this is what you're going to push to me to say, we sanction a pre-release. Like they're the Holy Pope or something. And it's like, it's, okay, that's great, but you didn't sanction a pre-release. You gave us the packs just like you gave them to us for Ultimate Masters. I guess you packed them in boxes of 36 boosters instead of 24. You still raise the price tag on them, so they're like $8 or $9 a booster, depending on what your LGS is charging for them. I think we're going to see them $9 at Walmart in the big box store. So now, ultimately, you didn't really change anything.
I'm not a Magic player. I'm going to preface that. I don't play Magic. I haven't played in a number of years now. I have no problems with the game. I just don't play anymore.
It's a collectible card game. That's not up your alley.
It's not. I'm
deck builder, collectible card game. Two things I'm out on. Got it.
Yeah, I'm a miniature guy. I love miniature games and I love RPGs. But so they're putting new cards out in this set, brand new cards that have never been seen in Magic before, and they're not going to be standard legal.
No.
Doesn't that fly in the face of everything Wizards been doing? Isn't Wizards been pushing standard? I
think Wizards always pushes standard. It's a business model. I mean, at the end of the day, you can call it what it is, but let's call it what it is. It's a business model. If I don't make new cards, I'm not going to make money.
And constantly rotate sets out to require people to buy.
And so standard is your business model. And again, I'm not
very
faulting
one.
that. Yeah, it's successful. I'm not faulting it. I know a lot of standard players get all, well, I'm not going to keep up with standard. That's stupid and fine. Then don't. I mean, it is what it is. But this isn't that. I think what irks me is they come out with this new system, which there are many, many parts of their new Wizard Play Network system that I really like. I love the packs. I can't remember what they're called, but the packs they're giving. They're not doing the single promo handouts anymore. They're doing more packs, and you get like basically what used to be called a standard showdown pack, and you use those as either price support or hand them out to the guys who show, at your discretion. And just fantastic. 2 thumbs up for the Wizards thing. But
like some of the promo materials, like the posters and stuff,
elevated.
Top quality.
Their Modern Horizons poster, though small, was solid. It looked like a foil card. Yeah. The fact that Flutterstorm, I think is it Flutterstorm, isn't foil. It's the promo card I hand out with a buy a box. It kind of irks me a little bit, but those are minor things at that point. But I just think it's silly you didn't foil that card.
But the last buy a box for War of the Spark, that was a pretty good one, wasn't it?
Tezzeret was good, but again, was it foil? Maybe it wasn't even foil. I don't remember. I just thought it should be foil. They didn't do if you want Modern Horizons to be like have its own place in your Magic history, they didn't. They can say they supported it. I don't feel like they supported it. They didn't do a real pre-release. They didn't. Yeah, they're sanctioning one, and everybody's probably running a pre-release. But we're doing the same thing we did with every master set, basically. And it didn't really. It's not changing the game. Oh, there's a pre-release event. Well, okay, we didn't call it a pre-release because what? Because Wizards didn't sanction it to be called pre-release.
Right.
We still ran an event that was the same thing. And the other thing is, they push standard because it is their business model. Totally fair. Then they take away the modern events to qualify for certain aspects of
Right,
the
that's
thing.
what I'm saying. They're pushing standard over.
And then they don't push it, and then they
But then-
release this
but then they
modern
release the
set
set
that
that-
doesn't help me push standard, and
at all.
it's
Yeah.
Blue, as Kellis said, they push standard with the standard sets. They've always had supplemental products with new cards, commander sets being the big one. that stands
Sure.
out.
And they've had the
That's
ultimate. They've had the ultimate master set. I'm not even denying that this is going to be a great set. I've heard this called another commander ultimate set. There's a lot of great commander cards in Modern Horizons. Our commander players are super excited about it, and so I'm not really faulting the release of the product when they released it. I'm faulting more of the marketing behind it and the thoughts of them as a company going, hey, listen, we need you to push standard so your modern events don't count for certain aspects of your WPN qualification. And then they push this modern product out to the world after they took that away. And it's like, you gotta pick something, man, and take the track because it's hurting us. And I know they've gone to the big box stores now, which, more power to them, but people don't play at the big box stores. They
Right.
play
Yeah,
at the
they-
LGS, and I don't feel like
They frown on you if you set
we
up a
get the
card table and
hugs.
start playing in the aisleways. They'll
Oh,
make
yeah.
you leave, yeah.
they get mad.
So
I don't think we're getting hugs from Wizards. I think maybe that's a silly way to put that, but that's what I feel like. It's like,
I get
well,
it.
let's see how much money can I make and push this product. Again, it's a business, so I understand they've got to do what they got to do.
You need to have a community to have that game continue.
Sure.
And if you don't have an LGS or like a gaming club at a local college or high school,
You're going to end up
Then-
with Magic Arena, and that's all you got.
and that's all you're gonna have.
Yeah.
So, and that would be a shame.
So I think that's more my frustration. I think some of the cards in the set are super exciting. I think the price tag on the set is a turnoff. Just because we throw modern in front, I think Wizards thinks, hey, we can charge an extra $50 because once you buy this card, you never have to buy it again. And again, from a business perspective, that makes sense for Wizards. From a local game store perspective, it's not as motivating because a lot of you guys are going to go out and buy the singles rather than, hey, let me buy some packs because the packs are just too expensive. I'll go buy some singles. So again, I kind of wish, like I think we have with all the ultimate sets, that maybe your price point could be a bit different. But I think you'll probably hear that from a lot of the guys who are salty or whatever. And from an LGS, standpoint, I just wish that, it's Modern Horizons. At the end of the day, it's a 15 card pack of Magic cards. Make it $4. Make your boxes cost that much. You don't gotta blow up the world with dollars. But again,
There's a lot of things
get
I
it.
wish Wizards did differently in terms of how they treat the local game stores. But yeah, I won't
Well,
dig into that.
Yeah, that's a whole episode. But the problem, and that's Wizards. And so still go out and support your local game stores. Just as a kind of a side note for this. It doesn't matter what Wizards does; those guys are trying to support it and give you guys as gamers a place to play. So,
Yep.
anything else on
what-
that? Okay.
One big boost for Magic too is Netflix announced that they are doing a series, I believe, focused around the Planeswalkers, based in the Magic the Gathering universe, and I think it's going to be done in an anime art style as well. The first trailers and announcements just dropped.
Wow.
And so that's a pretty exciting thing. I think it's going to bring up just more attention to Magic and people who've never heard of it before.
Sure.
Maybe just had a cursory, association with it. Might find a bunch of new players coming in. So we got to make sure we have those.
That'll be exciting.
Those intro decks ready.
And just to kind of segue into that, and this isn't on the list, but I get asked a lot, a Magic Arena, because I had already mentioned that. Is it helping, the local game stores and those kind of things? And I'd be interested to hear from other local game store people out there about this, because I have to say, just as I watch, I've seen, I think, our player base grow. Not exponentially or anything, but we've had people who we've never seen play in the game store, who haven't played in the game store for many years, come back to Magic because they got into Arena. So I think on some level that is doing something.
The question is are we losing players to Arena?
I haven't seen that.
Right.
How's that for an answer? I haven't seen a loss. I see a lot more talk about Standard. There is some complaints that my Standard collection is on Arena, but for the most part, the players I hear that from didn't come play even before Arena. Right. In the Standard setting. They would play Modern, or they would play Commander, but or some other format, but they didn't play Standard. So I think that and maybe this is a topic for another day, but the Arena thing has actually helped. And when Wizards does stuff like, hey, listen, if you come to Friday Night Magic, here are 3 free boosters with this promo code. Huge. That is a win. That's a win for the local game store. That's a win for Magic Arena. Mm-hmm. That's a win for the player base. That's a win for everybody. That's the kind of stuff that Wizards needs to keep on doing. And they're doing some of it. Just keep doing more of it.
Yep.
And that's going to be huge for LGSs and I think the game itself. So.
Yep.
And the Netflix thing, I'm excited actually. I don't watch a lot of Netflix, but I may actually end up watching.
I tend to throw Netflix on while I'm painting, and we'll have shows going while I'm painting models. Sure. So having something like that could be pretty interesting.
Other releases, Keyforge came out last week.
Yep.
We're going to do a segment on that. We got a box opening for the Japanese art Magic. I'm getting together with Scott on that, and we're going to do...
Okay.
We're probably going to take that...
about it for a while.
We're going to take that straight to YouTube. That's the thing. We're not going to live stream it, so that's where we're getting our recordings.
Our YouTube channel is live. There's content there.
There is, and there's more uploading each day as we catch up with the stuff that we have streamed. So, but I think that's all the releases kind of across the board.
That's all the release stuff, yeah.
Modern Horizons this weekend, and again, we will be doing a pre-release event this Saturday, and then just as a update, M20 comes out on July 6th.
Is that soon?
Yeah, July 6th and 7th. And M20 is the first time that Wizards has allowed LGSs to run a pre-release event on Friday.
Yep. That
and
is
so
a big change.
I know our local store is going to do a Friday, Saturday, Sunday pre-release event. So that's pretty exciting too. But M20 just a month away. Something else to look forward to. Just a lot of Magic kind of hitting you in the face all at once. It's kind of cool.
So we have a question we're gonna address.
That's a tough question.
It is a tough question, and the question is why would someone want to own a game store, or why would somebody want to go and open a game store? And this is a question that we get asked frequently throughout the year. I'd say easily 3 or 4 times by serious inquiries of, people would approach us and say, I'm thinking about opening a game store. And they'll ask questions like, well, why did you guys start the game store? And that's a hard one to answer. And so I'll think about it and shoot it over to Denactum for a minute and see what he has to say about why. And your situation is different because you came into an existing game store. What was your motivation behind wanting to own a game store?
Something to do.
Okay.
I'm a sad person though. I'm a little different. So I actually have a heavy business background, consulting and from kind of all aspects of business. And I did some volunteer work, and it's not exactly directed toward game store, but businesses in general. And this, I think, will answer a piece of the game store question. For many years, I actually volunteered my time at a small business development center. And people would come in with their ideas to, hey, I want to start a business, help me get a loan, those kind of things. So we would go through, and the first question was similar to this. You'd always ask, why is it that you want to do this? Mm-hmm. And on a game store level, and I've talked to a lot of game store owners, their initial entry into it is because I love to do X.
Right.
That's why I own it. I love to play games. I open a hobby store. I love to build models. And from a business perspective, the answer to that question is don't ever do that.
Yeah.
Really, it is. Yeah. And because especially when you talk about a game store, you will never be rich. You'll never make a bunch of money. And there are aspects that you can do because there are game store owners that I met, like for example at Gamma, who look like at least they're doing very well. But what you come to find is when you talk to them, they have some kind of something going on the side that's not game store directly related, or it is directly, like Twitch is one of those. They have a Twitch stream that's made it big. Their game store is not making them millions of dollars a year. It's whatever their side lights are doing. So game store, why own it? Probably the really only reason, and you're going to answer this question better than I do, if you're starting it and I'm the business guy sitting with the business guy hat on saying, why do you want to start a game store? The reason to do it is because you love it, and that's all you want to do.
Yeah, that's for years people have asked me that question, and it's like, why do you own a game store? And I tell them, like, it's a labor of love. It is not something you do for profit.
Right.
It is on a good year, it'll provide you a living. On a bad year, you're picking up a second job.
See, I thought on a good year, you're picking up a small second job. On a bad year, you're basically having 2 full-time jobs.
Yeah, I mean, and that's true. And we have the added benefit here of being in a very small community, which means it's even harder to run a game store than in a place where there's a lot of people. And I mean, you talk to the big companies like Wizards or Games Workshop or any of those guys, and they'll lay out like all kinds of fun business metrics for you, like, if your population base is this, you'll make this much money per person in your population based on averages of this and this, and it can get really dull. But the truth is at the end of the day, you better love what you're doing, because if you don't, you will hate it.
Yep.
Like it will burn you out. Even the things that you think you love the most, you'll just, it can really drive you mad with it sometimes. But if you have a strong love for it, then yeah, it's definitely a thing. But you got your word here. You got to have passion for it. If you don't have passion for it, it's gonna kill you.
Hurricane Katrina says, thank you for being in our community. And Pokey78 says, labor of love, heavy on the labor. True that.
I think it's a time commitment. I mean, when you talk about a game store, I look at the labor, and sometimes I go, we don't really work that hard. We play a lot of games, and we do that kind of stuff.
I don't play a lot of games.
And you end up not playing a lot of games because there's work to do. But we're not building houses.
It's true. Yeah, like physically speaking, it's not a demanding job. Yeah. I mean, in terms of
stressful things speaking, it is a demanding job. Okay.
There is a lot of stress. There's a lot of stress when you're balancing your books, when you're looking at your numbers. When, not to name any names, but like a really big game company unexpectedly drops a giant product release on you.
Or 2 really big game companies drop a giant product release in the same
week. One of them gave us a little more warning, to be fair to them. But it's those kind of things of like trying to make everything balance, and then also trying to keep your community happy at the same time, being realistic and having the right expectations set with your community as well. And that's really important too.
Yeah.
And you have all that to consider, And I mean, I think the thing that's made our store successful is we've always really put the community first. Is we've really focused on the community. We know if you build a community, you'll have repeat customers, but you focus on the community side. They're your community, and then they'll become your customers. Then.
And that's where a lot of your work comes in. You got to run events. You got to have activities. Yeah. You got to have reasons for them to come to your store. And so if you don't love doing that stuff, and so I think a lot of it goes past, I love to play games. I love to paint models. I love to play cards. I love to build magic decks. You have to want that. You have to want to take that to other people.
Yes. In
which case, then you can find some success. And if you don't love that, you won't find a lot of success in a game store.
Well, like I'm a GM for role-playing games normally, right? And like that for me translates at the game store. Like I like to be the one who designs and runs events for like Warhammer.
Sure.
For different, we used to carry War Machine.
Which, by the way, you do very well.
Oh, thank you.
Your stories are great.
And so like we create these narratives, we create this immersive world to play in for a bit, and motivate you to paint your armies and tell a story and do that. And that's why our Warhammer community is so strong. We have a really good Warhammer community here. And I mean, even our General's Journey shows that, like the number of guys who wanted to come get involved with that is fantastic. And that's it. That's what keeps me going. Like the success of those events, not even like at a monetary level, but just like seeing people come in and play games and have fun, and knowing I'm the one that put that together, that's what fuels me to keep doing it.
Yeah.
So.
Well, since Out of the Box is going to be running late, I think we can run a little bit longer. What about, let's say this, what about at our age? We've kind of seen the beginning of this hobby, and we're seeing it through, every age of it. What's it like to see the generations come into your store?
I'm not that old. I haven't seen the beginning of Wargaming. Wargaming is a long time ago.
Yeah, well, I should say modern wargaming, Magic, 40K.
Sure, I saw the beginning of Magic. I think I was born the year that D&D came out. It's really interesting to see the communities grow, like, because you see, I use the term kid freely because I'm old. I am old enough to do that. Anybody who's like in their 20s is still a kid, and I don't mean any like disrespect for that. But I see people who came into the store when I opened it 18 years ago, and they were kids, and sometimes really they were kids, and now they're coming into my store and they have kids, and it's just really makes me feel old seeing. But it's really cool to see like generational gamer families, and to see families where the children are old enough now that they're playing Warhammer, they're playing D&D, or they're learning Magic, and to like see their parents who were really kids, like teenagers or early 20s, coming in sometimes and learning these games here. So I don't know. I think it's cool, and I think the games have become more accessible. I think the games are easier to get into than they ever have been. I have watched Rogue Trader turn into Warhammer 40K and turn into the edition that it is now, and they're not even this. Can't even compare them as the same game.
Yeah.
Rogue Trader was almost a role-playing game rather than a war game, and like just all the random charts and all the crazy stuff that could happen. And I know those guys still love it and all, but like I love what 40K is today, and I'm just I love painting models. I love putting them on the table. I love telling stories, and I get to do all that with this, and that's why I own a game store too.
Sure. Well, and I think you have to have that deeper level of passion, if you will, for the game, not just to say I want to throw, because it's like what you said. I very rarely see you throw down on a game table, which is disappointing, and I know you wish you could play more. But Saturday. I think part of that is because you're putting so much work behind the scenes to make it work for everybody in the community. And I think as a game store owner, if you want to own a game store, you have to have that particular. You have to give up some of the, I just want to play games, because I think those are the guys that have the businesses fail.
Right. I'm gonna say, if that's your motivation, if your motivation is I want to play games, start a game club.
Yep.
Don't start a game store.
Yeah.
Start a game club. Let your passion drive it. You don't have to worry about the finances then. Keep your day job. Have a game club. Or ideally, if you can find it, work at a game store. But don't open it. You gotta have something a little different if you want to successfully operate a game store.
Yeah.
What are we looking at for time production? What are we at?
We got 52 minutes on episode.
Want to finish our last question? We got one question to go. What makes you, what gets you in? Like, pick your favorite war game. You don't have to say what it is, but pick your favorite war game, and what gets you into it. What gets
Does
you into the war
Underworlds
game?
count?
It can.
Is that it's more boardy?
It's a little more board game.
It's kind of war. And I would say Underworlds.
Let's swap this in. Okay.
Let's not do that then.
What was your first war game experience?
Warhammer 40K.
Really? What edition?
Ooh, I don't even remember. It was in 99?
99? That might have been 4th edition. Yeah. No, 3rd. That would have been 3rd edition. It would have been you either got into the tail end.
I think it was 3rd, yeah.
We're Dark Eldar out.
Huh?
We're Dark Eldar
yes.
an army. That was 3rd edition. That's when they came out. Okay. What got you into it?
Honestly, I actually wasn't a gamer until I got into college, and I switched my major, and I was assigned a hobby game store. As I switched my major to business administration, and I was assigned a hobby game store to do a business plan for. And we did the work, I did the project, did great stuff, did some cool things, and they asked me to hang out and do some more things with them after the project was done for school. They couldn't pay me to do it. I was in college, I was having fun, so it was good, and they gave me a set of Magic cards. Portal, I think I had announced that, and that's they're like, hey, take this in lieu of payment, and it was all downhill from there. And we started playing 40K, and so 40K was the next thing I did after Magic. And that's what got me into it. And I just love the aspect of collecting the models and building them. And then back in those days, I was much more, let me wipe the table with you. So, because I am a competitive person at the very depths of my soul. and I have passion to win.
I mean, I think most of us who get into these games do. I mean, you play the games because you want to win. But you know, I'm a competitive player, but I'm also a fluff player. I like my armies to tell a story, and I want to have a theme. And, but when I sit down to play a game, I'm gonna put my take all comers list out, but I'm gonna play my A game. Like I'm gonna play the game.
You do every time.
But so my first war game, BattleTech.
Okay.
For people who remember BattleTech, I know it's still around. It's in Catalyst Games has the rights to it. It was a FOSSA game when I started playing it. Guys I used to play D&D with back in, we were probably in junior high at the time. One of my buddies, we'll go into the, you know, it was always a trek to go to the game store in those days. You know, we were junior high, you don't have your own transportation. The nearest game store was 4 miles away from where I lived. And I lived in the city, or suburbs, I guess to be more exact. But it was 4 miles, so it was a trek to go. So it wasn't like you just hop on your bike and go. So we were lucky if we got to go to the game store more than once a month. And one of his little voyages to the game store, and this is pre-internet and everything, you know. So went to buy some D&D stuff, came back with the I think it was called City Tech box set. And it was a BattleTech box set, and it was a complete game in its own right. And you could break it open, and it was like all BattleTech, but all themed for urban fighting. And that was my introduction to wargaming. I'd never seen anything like it before. We played D&D a bunch. I have a soft spot for BattleTech to this day because of it. BattleTech is a fun universe. I'm one of those guys that I'm going to say this: clans ruin the game. Sorry, for all you BattleTech fans out there. I'm a big fan of the pre-clan era, pre-clan technology. Once the clan tech, it changed the tech level of the game, and it just certain things that were a factor in the game for resource management were no longer really a factor after that. And I really think the original game was a lot of fun. The base game was a lot of fun. 30-25 tech, a little bit of 30-50 techer before, but yeah, I started. We had little cardboard cutouts and stands that you'd play with initially, and then we started buying miniatures, and that's when I started getting into painting miniatures back then. I didn't start painting models till I was actually in high school.
So when I was a kid, we used to put green army men in the dirt and shoot them with rubber bands. Does that count as a war game?
That's probably your precursor, playing with
G.I.
Joes.
Precursor, yeah. It wasn't G.I. Joes. They were actually the
green army men. I
man.
had those too, but like playing with G.I. Joes or Transformers later too. Yeah, you got it.
I think there was some connection for me because we used to do that in like out in the middle of the desert, and my brother and I we would shoot them down, and we'd set them up, and whoever shot more down, that was the winner of the battle. But but that maybe that's why I like 40K.
First war game right there.
I mean, my second one was Gothic. Right after that, Battlefleet Gothic, and I really enjoyed that game until they released Eldar. And then we had an Eldar player who was just salty and kind of ruined that game. But it was my second one, and then fantasy.
Yeah,
I never got as deep into fantasy.
I got into 40K before fantasy too, because at that time I had been painting D&D figures so much that I was just burnt out on the fantasy theme. And I got into 40K at 2nd edition, like right when it first dropped, because I went to get into it, and I was running like a little mail order hobby shop out of my house at the time. Okay, I just moved to our great state here and was running my own business for the first time. My first time running my own business, so I knew nothing, and ended up destroying it eventually because I was just out of high school. But I had the idea to start a mail order business, and I had distributors and the whole bit, and I was working with Games Workshop and all that. Back when they would do that. This was before the internet once again, so they were still working with mail order. And I wanted to get into 40K, and I couldn't because they were between editions. They were waiting for 2nd edition drop. Rogue Trader was on its way out. I just missed playing in Rogue Trader, and so I bought Space Hulk. Oh. Space Hulk was available, and I started playing that game. I got a group of buddies to play it, guys I role-played with and stuff too, and we played the crap out of Space Hulk. Like, we played so much Space Hulk. We got every supplement, played through every side mission, every White Dwarf article we could get our hands on. And yeah, I love Space Hulk. And so, not surprisingly, when I finally got my hands on 40K, my two biggest armies have always been Space Marines and Tyranids.
Shocker. We got way off topic. So sorry. That was a nice trip down nostalgia lane, though. It's really good to do. So what makes you like a war game? I don't think we answered that question. I like it because I think that competition. The war game part, I like painting and modeling at this point in my career as a gamer, but I think I like the competitive nature of being able to fight a war on the tabletop that feels like a grand scale.
And then go have pizza with the guy afterwards, you know, like have fun, you know, like be friends with the person you're playing against. It's not.
It's a lot of fun just hang out and play war games.
Yeah.
So
You got to have good models, and you got to have a good story for me to get into it, and then I'll worry about the rules afterwards. But if you don't have fantastic, mind-blowing miniatures and a cool story, I'm probably gonna walk away from it.
Be less inclined to play.
Yep. Any last questions from our audience? All right, so just so everybody knows, RPG Out of the Box is starting late tonight. We'll be starting at 8 o'clock tonight rather than our normal 7 o'clock start time. But the crew will still be here. They will be showing up and getting ready to play here in a little bit. I know we did go a little long because we were allowed to.
Yeah, we had the time, and we went down the lane of memories, but that's okay. We were a little salty today, too. We'll have to do some more salty shows. They're more fun. We've got a change this week in the lineup, and it'll be a permanent change. So no Dungeon Delvers on Wednesday. That will now come on Friday at 6 p.m. To see Dungeon Delvers.
7 p.m. still.
7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, 6 p.m. if you're on the Pacific Coast. And it will be the same group hitting Gloomhaven. However, we will have a new Scoundrel player, and we'll introduce him on Friday.
They don't let me play.
It's not letting him play. He's got some responsibilities to do if you want to run a game store and a Twitch stream for that matter. So we will be doing that. And
so Dungeon Delvers is moving, not going away. It's just moving to Fridays.
It's just moving to Fridays.
And then we will be having a new show coming on Wednesdays within a few weeks here.
Yes, and it will. We know what it is. It will be the Boardroom.
Yes.
You can see it up online. On the website, chaoticnight.com. Check out the website. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate you being here. We love to be able to visit and chat and talk. I love the questions. The interaction is way more fun for us.
We have cool things coming soon, too. New announcements on some subscriber giveaways and stuff coming, too. So keep tuning in.
Lots
Next
of
week, we got some big things. We got some big things coming.
Sarge, for you asked, when are you going to interview some cool people? Maybe we can just get him on.
We're going to have to get Sarge for you on here. And just our viewership
buddy.
will plummet
Anytime.
down. Please follow us on Twitch. Follow us on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter. Follow us on, we're going to get Snapchat and Discord. Any social media that you can get, we will get it going.
If you have a Twitch Prime account, feel free to use it with us. We definitely appreciate that. Otherwise, if you want to subscribe normally, we do have benefits coming for subscribers very soon here. Get on board now. Be one of the early ones. And also subscribe on YouTube with us.
Yeah. Get on, follow. We appreciate you. Thanks so much. And we'll see you next week, same time.
Bye.
Have a good week.